Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity to present at the Wildfire Management Summit. My name is Shawn Bethel. I'm Director of Business Development at Forest Technology Systems, and today I'll be talking about wildfire situational awareness. And before we get into looking at the technology and tools out there, I'd just like to do a brief introduction of myself, Forest Technology Systems, and Advanced Environmental Monitoring Group. Next slide, please. So my wildfire operations career spans about 35 years, it turns out. I started off as a wildland firefighter in 1985, later found myself in Montana, helping out with the fires down there. I worked with the rappel crew for 10 years. In later years, I was working as a helicopter operations technician, a hoist operator, did cross-training with the LA County Fire Department back in the day, and I'm very proud of that. Later, I wanted to become an air attack officer, so I worked in air ops roles. But in order to become an air attack officer in British Columbia, you need to have a nationally certified course of fire behavior analyst. So I took that course, and it was in that course that I had some, eyes wide open to the exposure that we're all facing, going back 30 years and even now in terms of weather, topography, and fuel, and the impact it has in our environment. I later worked on incident command teams in various roles in ops, plans, and logistics. Also worked as a provincial fire control officer, accountable for an area about 200 million acres and with about 2,000 wildfires annually. I've worked on fires in North America, Australia, and mostly Western European countries, and quite a bit in Latin America. And below is the bottom there, those bullets are kind of a resume list of some projects I've worked on, and I'm very proud to have been a part of working with wildfire management colleagues in and around the world. In terms of my private sector experience, I've been working with private companies that are innovators of wildfire technology for close to 15 years. Worked as 10 years with SEI Industries with the Bambi Bucket and fire ignition products. Worked a little bit with Conair Aviation to help with their next generation air tankers. For those of you in the US, probably very familiar with Aeroflight. So I'm very proud of that work experience, and I'm hoping I can provide some thought leadership and some insights today. Next slide, please. Forest Technology Systems is part of the Advanced Environmental Monitoring Group, US-based private equity firm, created a family of innovators, providing solution software and services to the fire, weather, water, and agricultural communities for up to 160 years, about 400 staff and over 50 software developers. And Forest Technology Systems is founded by a British Columbia wildland firefighter and was part of the pioneering days of developing the Canadian Forest Fire Danger Rating System. We provided hardware and software services to the wildfire community for about 40 years, primarily with the remote automated weather stations, which we have over 5,000 of those positioned globally. Next slide, please. What we do in environmental monitoring and all the sister companies is a wide range of activities, products, services, and supporting wildfire management agencies, and private sector that involved managing water, agriculture, weather and climate, whether it be lightning detection, custom forecasting, safety and alerting, operational efficiencies with business continuity, real-time local road weather, air quality, compact portable systems with remote power telemetry, letting people know about dangerous particulate matter in our environment, and consumer-grade weather systems for those that are weather enthusiasts. Next slide, please. Vision is really to build resilient communities, monitoring extreme weather events, and increasing the situational awareness. Our mission is to make it easy for our customers to be able to monitor, record, and analyze the changes in the natural environment. Next slide. Who we serve. Who we serve are 50-plus USA wildfire agencies, Department of Interior, and the sub-agencies under them. We work closely with the National Wildfire Coordination Group. We also work a lot with Environment Canada and in Australia as well. Next slide, please. A lot of the images on this slide probably look very familiar to a lot of people in the audience today. And this is our shared reality. Next slide. With the shared reality comes the shared challenges. We're seeing increased climate change, changing weather environments, fuels accumulation, extreme fire behavior trending up, longer wildfire seasons, record-setting seasons. In fact, I recall in British Columbia, of our last 5 wildfire seasons, 3 of them have been record-breaking, breaking records previously set, 2003, 2007. Ever-expanding wildland-urban interface. With that comes increasing liability, increasing costs, more risk. Interesting stat, apologies, I don't have the source, but read recently that over 50 years, the last 50 years, has seen a increased frequency in wildfires across the USA by 400%. California definitely had some challenges over, more in recent years. In 2018, unfortunately, resulted in over 100 fatalities and $20 billion in damage. So we, as a wildfire management organizations, we need to be adaptive and look at the tools and technologies out there, and make adjustments to our method of operation to respond. Next slide, please. Talking about just quickly on the NIFTers of the National Fire Danger Rating System. A lot of people in the audience are very much aware of this, but I wanted to highlight that the FTS weather stations that form the NIFTers network, 3,500 of those across the USA, giving hourly weather data, providing a very specific set of weather parameters and sampling, and with that comes annual maintenance and calibration. And this is all part of the National Wildfire Coordination Group standard. Next slide, please. And that standard covers off things like what in terms of the National Fire Danger Rating System, lots of people in this audience are very familiar with it. But just to highlight that the FTS RAOS stations, there are 3,500 of those across the USA, reporting out hourly weather data via GOES satellite and providing a very specific set of weather parameters for the agency people that need to see this information. Next slide, please. Well, the agencies have set those standards, and the various questions that are asked in terms of what they require, in terms of the different weather sensors that need to be on there, how accurate they need to be, where they're located, where the stations are located, the frequency of transmitting the data, the telemetry options that are available, and the equipment, where it's installed, and how it should be used, and how it's maintained. And the sensor calibration schedule and whatnot. All this has been identified some time ago and maintained, and the FTS is the only weather station vendor that is certified by the National Wildland Coordination Group. And again, to the point I was talking about before about the collaboration with private sector and public agencies to look at the requirements in the field, identify, what they need, and work with them to make sure that, that weather station, that RAOS station that you're seeing there on the screen, does everything it's supposed to do. Going back in terms of, the inception of this product, it was originally designed to be super rugged for being in really remote areas, in terms of like Antarctica and the Arctic Circle, and, high temperatures and extreme humidities of, say, like Darwin, Australia, for example, and still pump out reliable, accurate data. So we're very proud of that part of it. Next slide, please. So getting into the more details of the technology of situational awareness, I look at some of those screenshots there and the panels, and it takes me back to the fire control room where I worked as a duty officer, the provincial fire control officer, and actually Ian Myers, executive director for the BC Wildfire Service. He'll be speaking about that organization and probably some detail about the British Columbia Wildfire Service. So, you know, Ian and I, as former colleagues, you know, shared the hot seat at times as a PFCO, and you know, we can definitely speak to the fact that, you know, we needed all the tools. We needed to see, you know, a map showing the, you know, spatial display of the fire danger rating, you know, risk loads, and that information was fed by the automated weather network. We were definitely, you know, interested in seeing, you know, see on the bottom left corner there of the screen, the blue dots and, you know, pluses and zeros as they're lightning strikes. We were tracking that on a regular basis by the minute, in fact, where it was coming into the province from, say, Washington or Idaho and tracking into our province, you know, hitting the high-risk areas. And that, for us, was, you know, really telltale. I mean, we had the ability to click on, well, first identify positive strikes, see what was actually potentially, you know, a new ignition. We could click on any weather station. I think we had a network of just under 300 automated weather stations in British Columbia. We could click on those and see, you know, in terms of the weather conditions around there. In particular, of concern was it getting rain? Was that lightning coming with rain, or is it outside the rain effect there? And those areas were, you know, of peak interest. And we knew at that time that's where we'd send air patrols, you know, send people driving out there to look, do loaded patrols with helicopters. Also pre-position more resources from other parts of the province throughout the different regions. And, you know, looking at those screens, the beauty of that situational awareness and the technology that was feeding is that we had 6 fire centers located throughout the 200 million acres of area of responsibility. And everyone, all the fire managers in those regions were seeing the same information. So we talk about you know, situational awareness. We also need to talk about a common operating picture, so that, you know, if we look back before we had these tools, there was admittedly hoarding going on. There were people that were honorably looking out for their area of interest and making sure that they kept their people and property infrastructure all safe from wildfire. So they hung on to helicopters, hung on to the tankers, hung on to their people. But when everyone's looking at the same map and you see areas that are blue and green and we don't have a wildfire potential, and others in different regions are sitting on, you know, ticking time bomb, there are no arguments when you start pulling resources from those other, you know, not really urgently required areas and filtering it down. And it's a little bit of a chess game going on. And the nice thing is, you know, everyone sees what the board looks like, and everyone knows that there's a limited amount of chess pieces. So everyone's more willing to share, and it creates that sort of, you know, more spirit of collaboration, and obviously more cost effective and way more efficient and better at keeping people safe. One of the things that we're going to talk about in the next couple of slides that we didn't have when I was there was an automated camera system. We relied extensively on air patrols. We relied on firefighters that were going back and forth in helicopters. They were reporting new fires. I did lots of that myself in the different aviation roles that I did. We even relied on airlines. Sometimes they called in fires. We definitely relied on general public to call in and report fires. But, you know, the camera systems is, you know, in my opinion, kind of more revolutionary in that those cameras are there. They can be programmed to automatically, you know, send still images, time lapse, and streaming video. With aircraft, you're limited to the range based on fuel and the type of aircraft. You're limited to the, you know, you send them a certain flight path to look at a certain area. They're going to go and do that. They're going to get low on fuel and come back. And, you know, there are big gaps, and it was very effective in a lot of ways. But now that there are other technologies available like cameras, definitely need to look closer at that. All of this, you know, that I'm talking about coming into play is the need for the ability for people to report the information, to know where the new fires are happening, and also to streamline that. You're getting multiple reports on the same incident, so it's important to understand, you know, which is one fire versus where you're getting 100 or 200 new fires in one day, which is possible. Having the ability to track resources, the mobile resources, the different air tanker groups, the different helicopters, trucks, people. One thing we were very proud about in the BC Wildfire Service is the ability to send the closest available resource, and that comes down to knowing where all these resources are at any given minute, at any given day. And the other part is being able to redispatch while they're in air. We used to, be proud of the fact that while a fire was being reported electronically, if the first question is, are people and property at risk? And if they said yes, we basically hit the WUI button. We called it the interface button. But when we did that, within 5 minutes, skids were up or wheels were rolling on tankers or helicopters, and they were basically en route to the fire. Now, when they were en route and say a new target came in, a new report came in, and we said there's a much higher priority, we could contact that pilot or that air attack officer in that aircraft and redeploy them to a new lat and long. So it was really, at the height of efficiency there, and that's still going on today, and I hope it's going on in a lot of other agencies around the world. A very important tool. And the fire, obviously the fire status and monitoring, the weather. Knowing the status of your wildfires, whether they're, new fires, active, contained, under observation, all kinds of different levels of progress and development. It's important to be able to see that spatially and understand, in a greater extent your workload, both current day and forecasting out into the future. In terms of the situational awareness, the image there, that landscape is maybe not so typical of a lot of places, but try to, imagine that, the fixed automated weather stations are, much more remote areas, further out in the landscape, beyond the horizon, infilling with portable weather stations, closer to infrastructure, compact weather stations, adding in, lookout cameras, lookout stations, lookout towers, but at other locations, automated camera systems reporting out, giving visibility into different areas, portable air quality stations, measuring particulate matter that might be affecting a community or soon to affect a community, and all feeding into the FTS 360 software, which I'll talk about in a little bit. Next slide, please. Just a quick one on the portable wildfire weather solutions that are available. They're very rugged, reliable technology, able to capture the site-specific data. The RAOS, which is a quick deploy portable version of the remote automated weather station, which is normally traditionally in the fixed. It's available to provide on-demand, real-time radio transmitted weather data to incident management staff and incident responders on the ground. Weather data transmitted via GOES satellite has all the same sensor package that's on the RAOS, and additional sensors can be added. The key thing with this one is it's easy to set up. One person, 15 minutes, no tools required. IntelliSense with their hyperlocal environmental monitoring, tripod, pole, and vehicle mount options. I mean, this thing comes out of the military. Weather data transmitted via cellular or iridium satellite. 5-minute to hourly frequency, simple on-off, LED notification, and fits into a backpack. Again, coming from the field, from military operations. Compact automated weather stations, more the, think about attaching to existing infrastructure, customizable, has all the same sensors that are on a RAOS, or scientific grade sensors, whether transmitted via cellular or GOES. 1 minute to hourly frequency data transmission, very easy to configure and manipulate through the FTS 360 software. Next slide, please. The RAOS camera systems, rapid deployment, portable system, getting out there in the field, gives the ability to capture and transmit images, video clips over cellular or satellite, very easy to set up, can customize whether you want to see infrared or thermal camera, and goes with the panorama camera as well. Time-lapse feature capability to monitor the changes in environment over time, and you can request video on demand, whether on by a weather event basis or on a predetermined schedule. Next slide, please. The right-hand tilt zoom camera system, so similar to the RAOS, but with the PTZ capability. This gives the emergency responders, incident commanders, a quick at-a-glance understanding what's going on in the environment, make quicker decisions. The PTZ gives you the live 1080p video streaming at 30 frames per second with a 360-degree field of view with 30-time optical zoom capability. So it's quite powerful. Also allows, through your FTS 360, the camera control, viewing live streaming video with azimuth, and weather station information overview. You see on the top picture there's a black banner across the landscape image, and in that is all the weather sensor data parameters displayed there. So you can quickly at a glance see what your temperature, relative humidity, wind speed and direction, precip, all that good stuff is there, along with the image that you're seeing. And then the FTS 360 Overwatch gives the user access to selectable content, both for extended teams and also to the general public. Next slide. So the FTS 360 software is an Internet of Things web-based software platform with a mobile app, secure, reliable, cloud-based, gives agile programming capability for doing advanced calculations, intelligent alerting, full configuration of capabilities. Supports the GOES, Iridium, and cellular telemetry, edge-to-cloud security, the control for your PTZ cameras, allows for optional lightning and air quality overlays, so you can have visibility of all that good information as well. Allows for custom alerts and actions that can be triggered intelligently, automatically. Direct API integration, also working with third-party analytics packages, iOS, Android, and Windows mobile apps for on-site station configuration, making it easier for the end user. And again, as mentioned, FTS 360 Overwatch provides access to extended teams and for general public. Next slide, please. So if they're looking at the takeaways in terms of situational awareness we've been talking about, hard to sort of cram it all into a 30-minute presentation. I could speak for hours on this, but really wanted to highlight the need to know your workload by looking at changes in the weather, the impact that has on the fuel, and your fire danger rating and your fire behavior activities. Starting point that I always recommend, wildfire risk assessment, super important. That's where you sort of draw out all the stakeholders and the pain points. The need for real-time weather data, it can't be emphasized enough. I mean, in terms of predictive forecasting for what you need, not just like that current minute, current hour, that day, but weeks down the road, weeks down the fire season. And the fire modeling solutions that are out there, a number of them out there, super important as well, but more on the reactive forecasting side of things. But at the end of the day, we want to detect our fires, catch them while they're small, and be able to monitor the live wildfire conditions. And in terms of the remote observation systems, now more than ever, I mentioned that's a valuable tool, is we have a lot of attrition. You've seen it in aerial firefighting with pilots, post-Vietnam pilots that are, leaving the mix. And, the same can be said for wildfire management agencies. A lot of people have retired, and, so now more than ever, the younger generation people that maybe don't have as many, hours on or days on the fire line are in positions to make critical decisions at critical times. So they need to see what's going on out there, and these tools allow for that ability. All these tech tools create a fuller picture. We talked about the common operating picture and, keeping frontline workers safe, and, protect our environment and, keep our economical and impacts on our communities minimized. But all this situational awareness technology really feeds into the ability to communicate, share the information, wider group of people knowing what's going on, more access to accurate, critical data, and making those critical decisions at critical times. This wildfire problem is not going away any day soon, so we need to rely more on fire weather monitoring, predictive services, and these observation technologies more than ever to reduce the risk, keep people safe, and give you a chance at being successful in dealing with our ongoing, ever-increasing wildfire problem. Next slide, please. I want to thank the organizers and everyone involved in this Wildfire Summit. I look forward to listening and watching all the other presentations. And I wish everyone great success and much safety during this wildfire season. Thank you very much.